I got a laundry basket plus half of my Trader Joe's bag full of beautiful red, yummy crab apples. So I'm gonna make crab apple jelly. Excuse my messy kitchen, but I'm going to be canning now. So I'll show you guys how I make, right now I'm gonna be making strawberry and mango jam. And this is how I make it. So in my pot, I have 8 cups of strawberries and 8 cups of mango. And so I just got this bag of strawberries from Costco, and from Superstore I got the Naturally Imperfect bag of mangoes. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit of water and simmer this until I can smash all the fruit down. So I'm also going to start making some crab apple jelly. So it's a bit of a different process than making the jam. So what I do is I picked all the crab apples. These are gorgeous crab apples. The flavor is really good. And I'm going to wash them, and I'm going to cut the flower end off. I'm not going to worry about the stems or the cores. I'll take out the leaves, of course. And then I'm just going to boil them down in a pot until they turn to mush. So I now have my fruit starting to simmer. So I'm just going to simmer it and use my potato masher to just kind of, as it cooks, I just mash it up like that and keep on simmering it. And then over here I've got my crab apples started going, chopping all the flower ends off, and then I'll start boiling those and just do the same thing. It's looking good already. So the mangoes are pretty stiff still for some reason, so I'm going to take my immersion blender and I'm going to just whiz them up. And that'll help all the flavors blend together. Now that I've got it all blended, I'm going to add the sugar. So I'm not going to add as much as the Certo package says, because that's just way too much sugar. So I think I'm just going to start with maybe 3 cups of sugar for this huge pot, and just kind of see what it tastes like. Maybe 2 cups of sugar. Yeah. I'll try that. So here's what my crab apples are looking like after only boiling for, I don't even know, 10 minutes or something. Not very long. So I'm going to smash them all up and see how much juice I get. Okay, so I was cooking dinner and making jams and jellies, so I realized I forgot to add the water. So that's why it was boiling all crazy and they were puffed up all crazy, because there was no water. So I just added the water, and now I'm just going to simmer it gently while I mash it up with my potato masher. So the first part of crab apple jelly is complete, which is just boiling them down. Now I have my big strainer with cheesecloth in a bowl, and I'm going to pour it in here and let it drain out through the cheesecloth. So here it is. I've poured it into my little makeshift strainer with the cheesecloth, and I'm moving on to the next batch. I still have a sink full and a whole basket full to do. So here is my strawberry mango jam that I've boiled down. I added the Certo in there, and I've got my lids boiling in there, and I'm just boiling my, I could only find my humongous canner. I do have 3 canners. This is my biggest one, and it's the only one I could find, so that's what I'm using. And in my oven is my jars that are being sterilized. I've washed them, rinsed them, and now they've been sterilizing for a couple hours now. And here's my second batch of crab apple jelly. It's still cooking, but I ran out of room on the stove for right now. I'm just going to jar up the one jam and then put this back on the stove. So here is how low it's gotten, and look at how much juice. Look at the color on that juice. So nice. So that's my first batch of crab apple jelly juice. Okay, so I've got my jars and my canner is now boiling. So what I'm going to do is I have my funnel, and I'm just going to fill my jars until they're a quarter of the way from the top. Now I like to do one jar at a time. So basically I have a clean wet cloth. I just wipe the lid, and then I put my snap lid on and put the ring on just fingertip tight, and then I do that with all of them, and my canner holds 7 jars, so hopefully I have enough to fill all 7 jars and fill up my canner. Okay, so I got enough to make almost 6 jars. This one's not quite all the way full, and I always use clean kitchen gloves I wear so that I don't burn myself touching the hot jars and stuff. So now I'm just going to place my jars. So since that one jar is not completely full, I'm still going to can it, but I'm going to put it in my fridge and eat it first, because you should never have something sitting canning that isn't full. So now I'm going to lower these down, and I'm going to, once they come back up to a boil, I'm going to let them boil for 30 minutes. Okay, so it's been 30 minutes. I'm going to lift these up and take them out. So here's my 6 jars, and now they have to, ooh, one already popped. They have to sit and chill out for 24 hours. And then you always want to make sure that you store your canning with the rings off. So here's some pickled beets and pickled carrots that I've done. And so now that they're all done and it's sealed, when it's pushed down, it's sealed. Oh, there's another popper. And then you just take the rings off. The reason that you take the rings off when you store them is if something, ooh, they're all popping. If something goes wrong and you have the ring on and the seal is compromised, then if the lid is not sealed just right and it starts to kind of go bad or ferment in there or whatever, like in a bad way, then the gases will reseal if you have the ring on. I'm pretty sure that's right. And then you won't know because you'll still think it's sealed, and then you'll be eating rotten food, which can be really dangerous with canning. Yeah, so that's why you take the rings off. And I've already got 6 cups of beautiful crabapple juice. And here's my second load in the strainer, and it's just going to strain overnight. Then I'll be making the crabapple jelly in the morning. So I've got more crab apples boiling. It's the next day now, and my jelly from last night, it dripped overnight, and I got, I think I ended up getting 16 cups. So I have 14 cups in here right now with a little bit of sugar and some Surto. And what you do is boil it, and then once it's at the jelly kind of stage, then you cool it off a bit, and you have to take off all this foam. And the foam is actually so good. So I usually save it in a little jar. And when I was growing up, my mom would make tea biscuits, and we would have the foam on the tea biscuits. It's sweet and light and airy. Oh, so good. Just reminds me of my childhood. So good childhood memories of canning with my mom. Well, I was kind of lazy, so mostly watching my mom canning. But this is what I'm doing again today. Okay, so, oh, steamy. I have been cooking this jelly literally forever. It has now turned purple, which has never happened to me in all my years of canning. Yeah, so I've got another batch of jelly sauce on the go there, and so I called my mom. And what I did wrong was, without thinking, I was trying to make the jelly a bit more healthy. So I only added about 1/4 of the sugar that it said to add, and I used regular Surto. So even after adding an extra box of Surto, it's still not gelling. And that's because I didn't use the low sugar or no sugar Surto. So I've had to now add, I still didn't add the full amount, but I got close, and I'm just going to see if it'll gel. So I've turned my canner off because my canner has been on for hours and it's really sweaty in my house now. And I'm going to just kind of sort this one out. So lesson learned, if you want to make your jelly a little bit healthier, use the correct Certo. So thanks, Mom, for helping me. And we always have this joke where when me and my mom are crafting together or baking together, every time she turns her back, I do something wrong and screw something up. So our little joke is that she's not looking. So I called her and told her she wasn't looking, and that's why my jelly didn't work. So that's funny. And now over here, I have more, whole nother load of crab apples ready to go. And I got a tiny bit more jelly in there. I just took out 8 cups of jelly from this much. Oh, it's really bright. It's really sunny outside today. From this much of the last batch. So now what I'm going to do, so my mom gave me a good tip, is you put a plate in the freezer, and then when you think your jelly is ready to gel, then you put a little bit on the plate, put it back in the freezer until it's nice and cold, and if it's gelled, then it's ready to go, and if it doesn't gel, then you got to cook it a bit longer, or in my case, add a bit more sugar. So I'm going to do that right now, and we'll see how she goes. Okay, so now it just came out of the freezer, and if you look, it's gelled. So I'm going to say that that is going to be perfect. Yeah. So now that it's been sitting for a couple minutes, I'm just going to skim off all the top stuff because you want your jelly to be nice and clear in the jars, and you also want to have that yummy foam to be able to eat with your tea biscuits. Okay, so now I've got my hot jars just out of the oven. I have my snap lids there with the boiling water, and I'm going to fill my jars to, I think, a quarter of the way from the top and see how many jars I get. So I just thought I'd show you this little tool quickly. So this is my little magnet tool, and it picks up the lid. It's hard to do with one hand, but you get the gist. So here's my jars of jelly, just fresh out of the canner. And I have never had, look, it's still boiling, so hot. I've never had my crab apple jelly go purple before, so that's interesting. And I have this little tool here. So what you do to lift it out of the canner is you use it like this. And I still put my hand under it because you would not want one of these jars to break on you. That would be really hot and terrible. So now I'm on to my next batch. So my second batch that I added the correct amount of sugar to right away is out of the canner, and I don't know if you can tell on video the difference of color. One's like a dark purple and one's the usual clear pinky color. So, lesson learned. And I'm just gonna keep on canning away. So the next thing that I'm going to be, pickling today is pickled beets. So all you do is boil your beets, leave the skins on, and then boil them until they're tender but not soft. Otherwise you'll have squishy beets after you finish canning them. And then just cool them down. So I boiled mine, and then I put them in, I just left them in the pot and filled it with cold water until they cooled down. And then I put on my gloves because I didn't want red hands. And the skins just slide off, and then slice them up however you'd like to eat them when they come out of the jar. I did make earlier this week, I made the pickled beets and carrots. I'm not sure if I showed you that already. But this one, I think I'm doing just beets, unless I don't have enough beets to fill all my jars, to fill my canner, then I'll just quickly make up some carrots. And so for the brine, I haven't put it in here yet, this is just my leftover brine from last time. So I'm just adding that to my new brine. So it's pickling vinegar, pickling spice, sugar, and water. And then you just bring that to a boil. And for the pickling spice, let's walk over here. I am using just the loose leaf filter bags. So just put it in there, and then when it's boiling, you don't have to, it just keeps all the spices in the bag, and you don't have to try to fish out the spices after. Makes it much simpler. So here's what it looks like, and I'm just going to be bringing it up to a boil, and this is the pickling spice that I am using. It's gonna smell like pickles in here very soon. Okay, so I've got my hot jars that I've packed with the beets, and I had, I could only fill the 6 jars with beets, and I had some carrots left over from dinner, and they were just boiled carrots, so I could use them just fine. And I've taken the bags out of my liquid. Now I'm just gonna fill these with the liquid and put them in the canner. Alright, so all my jars are filled and ready to go in the canner. Now, it's very important before you put your snap lids on to wipe the rim, because if you have drips of the liquid or anything on the rim, you might not get a seal, and you don't want to do all this work and have your food not sealed. So, very important. Okay, so this has literally never, ever, ever happened to me before, but when I lowered it down into the water, I kind of heard like a pop noise, and so then I looked, and I didn't initially see anything, and then I looked again, and the water was all red. I don't know if you can tell how red the water is. So I didn't want to let it go ahead and keep boiling, so I shut my canner off and kind of lifted up each one, and this one literally has no bottom on it. Look at it, it's a totally clean break. It just blew up. So I'm not sure, yeah, this has never happened to me before, so I'm not sure what I should do, so I'm going to give my mom a call. Okay, so what I ended up doing was I had to process it because it was hot. I couldn't really let it just sit there while I cleaned out the canner and reboiled it and everything. So you see the beets floating around in there. So that's what I did. I just left it. I took the jar out. The bottom of the jar is still in there. And now I'm going to take these out of the canner because it's been processing for 30 minutes. So I'm going to let them sit in here for 5 minutes, take them out, and then once they're cold tomorrow and good to go, then I'm just going to wash them off, is what my mom told me to do. And yeah, this is my first experience with a popped jar. I'm just gonna continue canning. I'm gonna clean out my canner now and reboil some clean water and just keep doing the same thing over and over. So I won't video anymore for you guys because you pretty much get the gist. If you had any questions about canning, I could try to answer them. You can leave them in the comments below. I'm not an expert on canning. I just kind of figure it out as I go along, or give my mom a call and she tells me what to do. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more of my videos, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you all in the morning.